the press and the Democrats cast the participation in the transition and now in the government by, I'll call them your colleagues, very successful business people, many from San Francisco Bay Area, as they're there because they're power hungry, or they're there because they want to help their business. They're looking to either their industry, lower regulation, less taxes, or their own personal businesses. Like Musk is there to be soft on China because he wants to do business with China. I tend to ascribe more positive motives to people. What's your sense of why they want to be there? You've done this too. You've given up time for your day job to spend time helping the Trump administration. Maybe not every motive's the same, but in general, how would you describe the motives of the people doing it?
Yeah. So first, thanks. It's great to be here. Long time listener, first time caller. Start by saying, look, I'm not, I play no formal role, and just disclaimer up front, which is I don't, I can't speak for the administration on anything, and I don't have any formal role. I've described myself as an unpaid intern, which is probably just itself a stretch. But I'm trying to help as much as I can, from the outside. Yeah, look, it's a whole bunch of people. I mean, it's actually a fairly large number of people now from my world who are involved. Some of them have gone into formal positions. Quite a number of people I know are now in, getting appointed, including to pretty senior positions. And so there's that cohort, and then there's the Doge cohort with Elon and his crew. And they've described that, and it's a somewhat different arrangement because again, like Elon doesn't have a formal position. And then I would just say there are a large number of volunteers. And so there are a large number of people showing up and trying to scrub in. I think everybody's a human being. I think different people have different emphasis on what they want to do. I guess maybe the most interesting thing would just say I think things have really changed in the last decade, and especially in the last 5 years, and that's certainly true for the whole country. But it's really true for tech, and it's really true for tech's involvement in politics. And maybe the best way to put it would just be, tech and Silicon Valley operated basically in a bubble in Northern California for 50 years, being really not that relevant to the political process. And politicians only ever really having a benign view of us. I mean, when I was a kid, coming up in the 90s, Clinton and Gore and the Democrats, and by the way, Republicans at that point were super pro tech, super pro Silicon Valley. They thought all this stuff was super nifty. They thought it was great for America, and nobody really ever had a problem with it. And it's really only in the last decade that the government has, in its various arms and adjuncts, have really come to bear down hard and get very involved in Silicon Valley. And so if there's a through line for a lot of the people who are showing up, I think it's that, they or we have been exposed to the political process in a new way in the last decade. And, I'm an example of somebody who just concluded from that it just isn't going to work to stay out of it. We tried that, and it just doesn't make sense to not be involved. And so that's probably the single biggest motivator. I'm very focused on tech issues. Other folks have obviously weighed in on a lot more of the other, foreign policy and other issues that I'm not involved in. So there again, probably different motivations.
Your role has been reported has mostly been helping with personnel, sort of locating, matchmaking people who might be interested. Is that basically what you've done, or have you done more than that?
Yeah. So volunteering. Yeah. So basically volunteering
as a volunteer.
As a volunteer. Yeah. So volunteering and basically on sourcing. And so, helping to kind of find people who want to go in. And then also for a while, I was on the interview team, in Florida, as a volunteer with a bunch of, with a bunch of people, both from tech and outside tech, just kind of helping vet through the candidates.
And again, to dissect your first answer a little bit, is it that your industry needs to be involved because government policy is hurting your industry, or is it more broadly America needs your involvement because the things they're doing to affect your industry will have an adverse effect on the whole country?
Well, we think both, and of course, look, it's hard to separate out self-interest or deny self-interest, and I'm not a monk, and so I won't claim that. Having said that, I do believe very strongly, and it's a position that used to not be considered radical, and maybe now it is. I do believe that America being technologically strong, was really key to the success of the country in the 20th century, right? Because technological strength maps directly to economic strength. Right. The country that is strongest in technology is going to have the fastest economic growth, the fastest productivity growth, the fastest employment growth, the most tax revenue, to be able to pay for everything. And then military strength. The country that's strongest on technology and strongest on the economy is also going to be the strongest militarily. And the 20th century was the American century, I think, in large part because America over that period had the best technology, the best economy, and the best military. And there's a peacetime version of that, which is just prosperity and safety, and then there's a wartime version of it, which is World War II and then the Cold War, where we won both of those wars. One of them a shooting war, and one of them fortunately not, but we won those. And the end of the Cold War was because Russia fundamentally, economically, technologically, militarily could not keep up. We were able miraculously to end the Cold War without direct bloodshed. And so I just think, like, if you're thinking about America being strong and successful and prosperous, and the world therefore being safer and a better place for everybody, I think we have a track record, generally speaking, that you want a strong America. I don't know how you're going to have a strong America if you don't have a strong tech sector. Like I said, like, Democrats used to just take this, Clinton and Gore would agree with everything I said, everything I just said. I think first term Obama would have agreed with everything I just said. And so a lot of us out here are a little bit still kind of blinking in amazement that any of this is controversial, because it just seemed like it was so obvious for so long. Having said that, I also often refer to us out here as the dog that caught the bus, and we have the tailpipe between our teeth and we're being dragged down the street, which is, tech worked, the internet worked, it became a big deal. Obviously, the internet became central to our politics. The argument I make out here is like, look, this is never going to change. We are now always going to be enmeshed in politics, because what we do just has turned out to be too important, and too central to the political process itself, as well as many other issues in the country. And so, maybe the other side of this is just people like me and us learning to, basically to grow up and have a more adult view of this. Of course, you guys were not going to get to sit out in California forever and just do your own thing. Of course, you were going to have to come into the fold to be part of this, kind of broader conversation. So I also concede that point.
And not just write checks to Al Gore and Barack Obama.